The next part of our trip takes us further into the Richtersveld, where we spend 2 nights at the Whoop and 2 nights at the Tatasberg Wilderness Camp. Our first stop is at the Hand of God, which is one of the great artworks of the Richtersveld. It's basically the shape of a hand that has eroded into this rock formation, and the locals believe that this must have been a sign from God, hence the Hand of God. The trip from Helskloof to the Whoop is just over 42 kilometers, and you have to go over the famous Akkedis Pass. It's not that difficult a pass to traverse, except that there are a couple of blind spots where overtaking may become a problem. On our last day in the Richtersveld, we drove over the Helskloof Pass, which was a very technical drive considering that we were towing as well. But more about that later in this video. This is the last section of the Akkedis Pass. That's me making my way to the top. Gerry got behind the wheel, I got behind the camera and recorded her drive up to the summit. Our final stretch before arriving at the Whoop, the drive took us just over 3 hours, which included the stopover at the Hand of God. First task, setting up camp, followed by an ice cold beer. Imelda and Hubertus joined us at the Whoop soon after our camp was set up. We bumped into the previous occupants of this campsite as we approached the Whoop. It's a lovely site that's very sheltered from the wind. However, the vervet monkeys were still a problem. our first evening at the Whip, with the moon rising over the Namibian side of the Richtersveld. About 5 kilometers from the Whip, the road forks. We chose the right-hand side of
we'll
the
go
fork,
around,
which is actually a
see what the
4x4
other
track.
part is, and we'll come back down here. The section where we came down with the caravan.
The next morning, Gerry and I went back to see where the left-hand side of the fork would have taken us, just in case we wanted to come back this way to get back to Sendlingsdrift. Okay, reversal of roles. I'm behind the wheel and Gerry's behind the camera.
Are you coming? You walking? Okay, she's walking.
The section is steeper than what is portrayed on camera. I mainly used low range first, and only towards the end did I shift down to low range second. In the end, we travelled back to Sendlingsdrift via another route, but it was fun doing this 4x4 trail again.
Cool. Okay, jump in, there's another vehicle coming.
The drive from the Whip to Tatasberg is only about 13 kilometers, but it's extremely technical, with lots of rocks and thick sand. We stopped at the Richtersveld campsite, which is en route to Tatasberg, in case we wanted to camp there for any future trip into the Richtersveld. It took us over 2 hours to cover the 13 kilometers to Tatasberg. We were all pleasantly surprised at what the reed cabins at Tatasberg had to offer. There are 4 units. Each unit has a deck overlooking the Orange River, and it also has a braai facility on the deck. Each unit is divided into 2 sections. The kitchen section that is fully equipped, and then also the bedroom and bathroom section. Imelda and Gerry going boulder hopping along the Orange River. I followed them along the way, but not the whole distance. The next morning, we took the 8-kilometer drive to the Tatasberg viewing point. Wow! This was definitely one of the highlights of our visit to the Richtersveld. It's actually a valley, but more like an amphitheater. It's surrounded by mountains, and the mountains are basically made up of boulders. The drive is a gradual climb to get to this valley or amphitheater. Imelda and Hubertus arranged to walk the 8 kilometers back to the camp, while Gerry and I were planning to explore the Kokerboomkloof campsite afterwards. These cliff springers in the far corner of the Tatasberg viewpoint. Cabin and then went out to Kokerboomkloof, which is almost 40 kilometers away from Tatasberg. We came across these sand grasses and ostriches along the way. In general, the bird life was a bit disappointing, but then again, this isn't Kruger or Kgalagadi. While this campsite isn't along the Orange River, it has its own beauty. Each campsite has its own ablution block, and the campsites are normally either against a rock face or surrounded by boulders. Unbelievable flora in this campsite, with lots of guava trees. These are some of the spectacular views on the drive back from Kokerboomkloof. I took these shots from one of the rocks on the side of the road as we were descending. You can see the viewpoint in the distance. Taken from the viewpoint, and looking back, that's the rock in the distance that I took the first few shots from. Our final view of the Orange River from our Tatasberg deck before heading back to Helskloof. This part of the trip took us about 5 hours, while most of the trip was plain sailing. As you can see, the difficult part was yet to come. Helskloof Pass. The first part of Helskloof Pass was reasonably easy. We still used low range, but it became more and more difficult as we went further and further into the pass. The strong wind didn't help either as we ascended higher and higher. There were many sections where Gerry had to get out of the vehicle and guide me. It's always very difficult when you're towing as well, because you need to anticipate where the trailer's wheels are gonna be landing, so it was not easy. There's not much footage of our journey over the pass since we were just focusing on trying to get over. This is our last descent, and even that isn't easy.